Christian parenting.
Welcome to the Living Wholehearted podcast. We are Jeff and Terra Matson, a husband and wife team who is shrinking the integrity gap in our own lives and helping others do the same. I'm a leadership and organizational development coach, and Terra is a licensed marriage and family therapist.
We believe that if you have a following, you are a leader, and how you lead matters. Whether you are leading in the home, work, or community, we are bringing you biblical, clinical, and relational wisdom to help you in every relationship that matters most to you. None of us do this perfectly, but we are leaning into the reality of our humanity and profound wisdom of grace. I am so excited because we get to talk about courageous girls. I know Jeff would love to be here for this dialogue, but sometimes we just divide and conquer. And today it's my mantle. I get to chat with our courageous girls coaches, Stephanie West and Beth Kershner. Now, if you haven't been around for a while, I just want you to maybe get to know them a little bit. If you've heard some of the other interviews we have with them, they're fantastic. They share more of their stories and their piece. You can go to our website at mycourageousgirls.com and learn more about them as well. But Steph, just share briefly a little bit about who you are for our audience who's never met you.
Hi, I'm Stephanie, and I am married to Nick, my husband. We've been married 17 years, and I have 3 kiddos, Gabby, who's 12, Livy, who's 9, and Noah, who is 5. And I am in 2 Courageous Girls groups, and I have been blessed beyond measure. And I'm really excited to be here today to talk about Courageous Girls.
One thing that Stephanie wouldn't tell you, but she actually has a master's degree in counseling and is a coach, has a certification in coaching women, and is just passionate about the marginalized and helping bridge the gap between all the diverse parts of the body. An immense knowledge and a passion. So we love that part of who she is and how she integrates that in her leadership. Beth, how about you?
Hi, I'm Beth, and I'm married to Jeff. We've been married for, we just hit 19 years, and we live on a little homestead here in Oregon, outside of Portland. And I have 3 children as well. Claire is in a Courageous Girls group in one of the original groups with Terra's oldest daughter. And then I have, and they're going into 8th grade. Then I have a son, Sam, who is almost 12, and my daughter, Ruthie, is almost 9, and I am a leader for her little Courageous Girls group.
So Beth is the famous chicken farmer that I reference in Courageous, and we have talked about how God uses poop and manure and turns it into fertilizer in our lives, and I've learned a lot from Beth, but she also is an audiologist. Is that even how you say it, Beth?
Yes, that's correct.
That is so fun. Just the vast variety of skills and expertise that she brings to the table. But even more than that, she's just been a dear friend that's walked with me every step of the way and has watched Courageous Girls grow up as one of the original moms in our first group. So if you don't even know what the heck I'm talking about, what is Courageous Girls? We started, Jeff and I, a group that really was geared towards our own daughters. As a clinician walking alongside so many moms, daughters, husbands, I just was seeing these patterns and these symptoms that I honestly was scared. And as a parent, I was like, how do I conquer these? Now, I know realistically you can't conquer them. But what I learned through the process of God's word and in just knowing as a clinician, when you are not alone in the process, you can make it through everything. And when you are able to walk in consistent, open dialogue and to continually have grace in the process, it's pretty amazing how we can grow and how resilient. And no matter what happens, we can really make it. God has made us pretty resilient. And so when my girls were little, I prayerfully considered what other moms and daughters could we walk alongside. And I'd be willing to write some curriculum and let's just talk about the issues that our girls need to face in this really harsh world. So that's what we do. We now have curriculum from second grade all the way through high school, and there are groups that are meeting all over the globe right now. And if you're listening and you've never heard about this, check it out. It's pretty phenomenal. The curriculum's free, and it is biblical, clinical, and relational wisdom really woven together right where our daughters are. So before I have Beth and Steph share more, I have a little more to say. Surprise, surprise. I just want to tell you who a courageous girl is. There is so much to learn about being a girl, and so many of us moms are still discovering this, and we've been hungry for help. And we just want to help moms discover their own courage as they are raising their daughters, and that they would know and that their daughters would know that they're loved. Every one of us daughters, we are a daughter of the King, and so often we get sidetracked by all the other voices in our culture, and there are a lot of voices. And so part of the consistency and the slow and steady drip of courageous girls, reminding our daughters, reminding ourselves of who God is and who he says we are. And over time, this DNA starts to develop in these girls and in us. So we've used the acronym of Courageous Girls. So courageous C is she's confident in who God made her to be. The O is she's open to those who are different than her. U is she understands and actually applies God's word to her life. The R is she's able to risk because her faith is in a big, big God. She really trusts this big, big God. A is she's asks for help willingly, both in prayer and in her community. She's not afraid to ask for help. And G is that she's generous with her time and resources. She understands that God has gifted her with talents and gifts and wiring to be used for his greater kingdom. E is she's empathetic and she loves well. And that is a learned thing. It isn't something we're born with. O is she's obedient to God. And that can be a bad word to many people, but actually obedient to God means that we know he loves us. It's a response to love. U is unique from the world around her. She's going to look different. And people notice that about our courageous girls, right, ladies? Mm-hmm. They notice it, that she's going to look different because she's making different choices and she's discerning different things and she's wise. S is she's a servant heart, meaning she sees more than just herself in the world around her. G, she's a good friend. Again, takes practice over and over, even when it's hard. I, she initiates with integrity. R, real and honest with God and others. And L, she lives and leads with whole heart. I know that sounds overwhelming and like, wow, Terra, you have really high expectations. But I have to tell you that this is all undergirded with grace and trusting a God who has so much planned for his daughters. And I just think we limit who our God is and who he says we are. And so part of this journey is discovering that. Okay, I feel like I talked enough. I'm going to hand the mic over a little bit to Beth and Steph. Steph, would you just share a little bit about how Courageous Girls has been informing who you are and your daughters, and especially during a time like now in the middle of this pandemic and all the unrest around us?
Yes, there's so much unrest. I think one of the big things that we have really leaned into from one of our takeaways from being part of Courageous Girls is building resiliency. We are really exercising that muscle right now in having to alter plans and life and just strip everything down and slow down. I really value my girls learning that life isn't easy. There's hard and there's good. And in fact, Catherine Wolfe, who is the author of Suffer Strong, she uses that word, good, hard, and I love it. I heard her speak at the Courageous Gathering recently, and I am going to use that word. She made that word, and I'm going to use that word because it is so true. It is so true. There is so much good right now, and there's so much beauty. There's this simplicity. There are people coming together and seeing and attuning into the world, but there's hard right now too. So I'm really practicing helping my girls learn to be resilient, to follow through, to be able to lean into when things feel uncomfortable and difficult. There's a lot of suffering, just even within our own family right now. They see their aunt just walking a really hard journey. My sister, she has leukemia, and she just is getting through her second remission. And so they see this good, hard right in front of them, that there's so much beauty. We celebrate her, but we also have seen the hard journey she's been in. And I know that her story is not at all unique. Each one of us have a story that we are walking, or we have a friend or a family member that is experiencing different forms of suffering or different forms of hard. And so again, a takeaway that we have been blessed with and have gained skill and knowledge in it through our involvement of Courageous Girls is the resiliency piece.
So good. Thank you.
Courageous Girls. I'm part of my wiring is I'm a builder. And if you don't know what that means, there are other wonderful podcasts to explain wiring. But basically, to the point, I have really, in Courageous Girls over the last 6, almost 7 years, grown up as a daughter as well in the curriculum. So all those beautiful things that Terra said 5, 6 years ago would have felt completely overwhelming to me. Stripped away all of that, Courageous Girls to me and to my girls is giving them to me what is the most important thing that I want them to have in this world. And that is to know who God is and to know who God says they are, period. All of the rest of those beautiful acronym definitions come out of that. But at the end of the day, I want them to feel that they have a safe place to land in God, the perfect Father, and that they are perfectly and beautifully made in who they are, not in what they do, but in who they are. And that is what Courageous Girls has given. It's given a platform for me to consistently drip on these girls and my son the topics that are hard in our world, good hard, but through the lens of this, that they are loved, and they are loved by us. They are loved by a God who made them.
Yes. And I think one of the DNAs of Courageous Girls that makes it a little more unique is, as a therapist, I am coming from a bias. I've just learned, I've been in full-time ministry. I have led lots of different types of organizations. And as a therapist, I have seen more change and transformation and through the slow and steady, consistent processing and of safe relationship. That is something that the context of therapy provides. And it taught me a lot about how this parenting thing happens. It isn't just telling our kids you're loved. They need constant, consistent, and safety. And so Courageous Girls is that. And that's why it's slow and steady and sometimes too slow for a lot of us. But honestly, that's where the good stuff really happens. I'm sure as a farmer, we can bounce off into all kinds of analogies there. But one of the practicals is honest and open conversations. So let's talk a little bit about that. How do we have honest and open conversations with Courageous Girls? Maybe one of you can speak to that.
Yeah. We have to, as a leader or as a member of Courageous Girls, we have to come as we are. And that is really hard as a woman. We don't want to come as we are. We want to come as the way we want you to think we should come or, whatever. We have to, first we have to spend time with God, and he has to remind us who we are, right? And then as some of that starts getting stripped away, either from weariness or from just giving it away, we can start moving into who we really are. And bringing that and being okay with it, and building our relationships based on that. And then as women are giving that to us, grace. I mean, just sitting in grace and just starting to shift the way we see. And that's one of the ways this has been such a beautiful dripping over the years is every month we have to come together because we've committed. And there are many days when we come together and we're tired. I have a migraine, or, there's things on your mind, or you're busy but you've made a commitment. So you come, and the more you come, the more often you come, the more the mask comes down, the more the false comes down, the more we come in sweats, the more we come in less makeup, the more we come in being okay if someone cries. If it's us or someone else, it's okay. It's actually great. And celebrating the rawness of who we are. But that takes time. We didn't all show up at our first meeting in our sweats with no makeup and crying, right? I mean, and I'm not saying we cry at all our Courageous Girl stuff, but there's room for that. There's room for more vulnerability, but that takes time. it just takes time. And when you're standing at the front of it, it's like someone gives you a teenager to raise. It's very different than someone giving you a newborn to raise or a 2-year-old to raise. We work up to it slowly, in different ways. And so
good. It's so good. The part that you're talking about of like it's a slow and steady drip and our masks are coming down, and what I intentionally and just unintentionally have experienced is just how our daughters are watching this process too, as moms are having more discovery. And that's the beautiful part of how God uses it. And our girls, here's something, a phenomenon that happens in a lot of Christian homes. And I sadly have sat on the far side with the adult who's looking back. Kids often don't see the real part of their parents. All they see is what others say about them or how they look at church. And they have a disconnect between how they see their parents talking to one another and then how they are at the grocery store, but nobody talks about it. And there's confusion. And then they create these paradigms or belief systems about God, about themselves, and about others with no help to process that. So that's what I'm doing in counseling, but we're doing in hindsight. That's the beauty of Courageous Girls, to say, let's do it in real time. Let's not wait till they're 35. Let's do it when they're in 2nd grade and 5th grade and now at 16 when they have a real voice because we gave it to them. And they're going to talk honestly about, hey, Mom, you weren't being real in group today with our Courageous Girls. What was going on? I mean, this is real discipleship. This is where the good stuff is made.
And I was going to build off. So, Beth, you really highlighted all the growth that happens for us as women. And I was going to highlight the growth that I've seen in my girls and our relationship. And so to build off of what Beth just shared, for my girls, for them to know that they are fully loved, not only by me, but more importantly by God. And through that confidence, I see them this outpouring in their friendships and learning how to do friendship in a new way. I wish I would have learned this. They are so much farther ahead in this process of learning how to speak what's on their heart in truth and love, learning how to be able to embrace conflict and not run away, but instead lean in, because they are equipped with these skills that they are learning through Courageous Girls. And then in our relationship, we are able to have dialogues that are not comfortable. The 2-year-old dialogue is fantastic. I love it. It's safe. It's easy. But as we are having harder and harder conversations, there is a new trust. There is a renewed comfort. There is a renewed normalcy in our conversation topics. And there's a desire for them to engage with me and their dad in such beautiful ways that I don't know if we would have had we not had this umbrella over us. I am so thankful for the growth that I have had as a woman and as a mom, but I am loving seeing the fruit in my girls and the relationship that we are able to have too, and just the ripple effect in our family. My husband just cannot speak highly enough of the involvement in Courageous Girls. I mean, he wishes that there was a Brave Boys or something for our son for him to be involved with. But he sees the power of being part of this movement for our family. So it's been a huge blessing.
So much there. Well, let me speak to the boy piece. That is the most common question that Jeff and I get is, when are you writing the boys' curriculum? And I will just say there is some fantastic curriculum. It's not familiar or similar to Courageous Girls model. And the reason is because they're boys and boys need something different. However, right now, that isn't what God's asking us to do. So we have to really be obedient to step into this girl thing. And I would say that there is an intentionality about what you're diving into with Courageous Girls will impact your sons, will impact your husband, as Steph is saying. And dads are involved in their daughters. And as a dad learns how to listen and to see her and to value her, and for the daughter to say, hey, Dad, I need you to listen right now, or things like that, your son is watching that. a lot that God is doing that is for your son as well. And we have conversations in Courageous Girls around pornography, around purity. Body image is still an issue for boys. And so I know there's a lot of boy moms that actually use the curriculum. They maybe don't meet as a group, but I know that there's hybrids, and I'm okay with innovation and however the Lord is leading you. But I would just say that if the Lord wants us to do that, you'll have to keep praying, because we will say yes if the Lord asks us. But right now, we're going to keep working on Courageous Girls. But I just want to give you that hope to say it is impacting, as Stephanie was saying. There's something that God is doing. And I see that from the therapy world. When one person decides to do their work, everybody else is impacted. Whether they like it or not, they're impacted. I want to move forward into some more of like the meat of the curriculum. Let's talk about what are some of the issues we see in today's culture. We are in the midst of a pandemic, so we have that, I think, just highlighting what was already there. A lot of what we're seeing now is not new. It's just we didn't have the sugarcoat over it. It's just raw and exposed. So the things that we're naming, they've been there all along. They just maybe are exacerbated right now. So what are some of the things we struggle with as moms, or we see girls struggling with in general, that the curriculum is really highlighting?
I think two big ones that stand out to me right now are anxiety. I think it's been there. We have a huge rise. I know, Terra, you can speak to the numbers more specifically, but I think because of the pandemic right now, that has been exacerbated beyond what we saw before. And then this intense loneliness. We are not able to be in any community settings. And so I think before, while we may have been, people may have knew of us before, and so maybe that felt like we had community, right now we are not in any sort, no one is really seeing us. And so that our feelings of loneliness and that omission of community is so vast. And I know you touch on that aspect in your book, Courageous, being daughters rooted in grace, Terra. I would love to share this quote. I think loneliness is at the root of most, if not all, unhealthy coping behaviors. And when we are confused about who we are and we try to make meaning around the human experience alone, the depths of our soul remain empty. So again, just reiterating the value of community, and Courageous Girls being in that community is balm to our soul. And this year, it may look different being in community. It may be a little bit hybrid of virtual and in person, but to have that umbrella over us and to be able to link arms with other women and have our girls link arms with other girls and to walk this journey together is beautiful.
Yeah, and actually following up on the well said, Stephanie, following up on that loneliness being a root, and we're talking, I mean, we're out in Oregon, United States. It's the root of a lot of stuff. And so the thing that always comes to mind, I have a teenage daughter. Our culture here is so based on image. And it's not even self-image. Am I thin enough? Is my hair long enough? But am I sexy enough? And this curriculum really speaks to what are our girls seeing? And they're seeing that their bodies that were created for something very beautiful, and one of the most important relationships that they will have on the earth is being exploited all over the place, everywhere they turn. And so speaking into that regularly through the curriculum, and helping them, and helping us as moms as well, see the truth, and then start fighting some of the lies that we're facing as far as what makes us valuable.
So good. There are so many things that we cover. And I think moms will say, okay, do you cover social media? Yes. Do you cover friendships? Yes. Do you cover body image? Yes. Do you cover, and the reason is because we're dealing with the root systems, and a lot of what you were saying in that quote there, the unhealthy coping strategies are what parents have brought their kids in, or they are dealing with still for years. And my unhealthy coping strategy has been food and body image, hyper-focusing in on my body, and struggling for years with an eating disorder. And then post the eating disorder, just consumed by all of the stuff you're talking about, but that's sexy. And what I've heard from so many kids and what I see, I will put it in that they are now a brand. So our children are growing up in a culture that is saying, what's your brand? How are you putting that brand out on social media? How are you presenting yourself? Which only adds to them wearing masks and feeling more and more lonely and unknown and unseen. That is so counter who our God is and how he sees us. So it is different. This curriculum's going upstream, and it's really it's not going to prevent a hard from happening, as you were saying earlier, but it will prevent from that self-harming stuff that we do, because if we have relationship, we can actually talk honestly. We can actually process our emotions. We know where to go and ask for help, and we have people, God and others. These are the vital parts that help our kids navigate whatever their story is. Bullying, you name it, disabilities, learning, wherever it is that they struggle. These are the core roots. So Courageous Girls is really just wrapping our arms around all those things and trying to build a solid root system where they have a chance to grow strong, resilient, and grace-filled relationships.
Yeah. So and then just to build off and echo what you're saying, Terra, what we are as parents, I'll speak for Nick and I, we are all of this participation and involvement with Courageous Girls and helping our girls know that they are fully known and loved by God, and learning that at such a deep core level is our prayer, is that when they face adversity, when they are faced with suffering or hard decisions or make decisions that are painful, that they have the resources and tools to be able to draw upon that and say, what is the next right step from this? Because we all make mistakes, and this isn't about having a perfect child. This
Totally.
is not it at all. And that's what I love. But it's acknowledging when things come up, when you make mistakes, how do we go from there? And so just really validating that and helping to prepare. So
Yeah, and I wanted to also speak to the moms or dads that are maybe a little bit on their own, either within their marriage or not in a marriage. I know there's research, and that's not my field, but there's research that talks about the significance in a child's life to having one or two safe people, adults, walking with them. And the beauty of Courageous Girls are, it's not really tricky. You show up and you start shedding your own stuff, and you follow
Did
a
you say
curriculum.
shedding?
I said shedding. Sorry.
Just clarifying, but it could have meant the other.
That's true. Fair. Shedding your own stuff and doing that with one or two or six other women, or if you're doing it, as dads, however this looks, you're providing your child an example of truth, even though it will be messy, and they're not alone. And you're bringing another, couple of adults, hopefully a little few more into their life. It doesn't have to be a lot. Like, they just need to see that, and that helps them with all of these things that we're talking about. And then the curriculum gives you a way to do it.
It's a vehicle. It's not the way. So if we're not saying this is the answer to everything, but it is a vehicle. And I'll just end with this. There's probably many of you that are hearing this that are so excited and you're ready to get started. Go check it out. Visit in our bio. There's the link. But mycourageousgirls.com, there's a lot of information, and you are hearing from our coaches who are here to help you answer questions. And they actually do coaching around who you are, what kind of leader you are, how to set up your group. So if you're interested in that, you can talk to them more. The other factor that I'm hearing in my head are all the parents who are like, oh my gosh, sounds extremely scary. I couldn't do that. You don't know my story. I don't even know where to start. I don't even know the Bible. That's what is so great about this is we pretty much did a lot of the work for you, and with a lot of breathing room for you to add your own fingerprint into the equation of your group and allow the Holy Spirit to help shape your group. but we did a lot of the work for you. So just knowing that, and it's once a month. People think you meet weekly. It's once a month. We just really, again, think about it from second grade all the way through high school. You've been given a guide. We're just a guide, and we're getting you up that. If we were to go for a hike, we're your guide, and we're going at your own pace, and we know what it looks like at the top, and we're like, we're not there yet. Keep going, keep going. But you don't have to think about what the trail looks like. You just get to walk, and you get to pace it at your own pace, and with the pace of those in your family and in your group. So I just want to lower the bar. Take a deep breath and just know that the core message is grace, that God meets us right where we're at. He meets our children right where they're at. He meets us as parents right where we're at, and he uses it. And if you don't know the Bible, we help you integrate that. If you have no clue where your daughter should be developmentally at 9 years old, at 12 years old, we help you with that. If you have no clue because you didn't have any parents who modeled healthy, or maybe they tried and did their best, but you still don't want to do it their way, we're giving you some insights to say from a clinical worldview and from trauma-informed research, here's some of the things that you want to be talking to your kid about before it's already being shoved down their throat from the cultural stance. And we work on, again, body awareness, being able to use their voice, being able to have boundaries and say no, to be able to recognize their own emotions. It's just so much. So I'm a little bit passionate because I am one of the co-founders. So, hey, but before we close, Beth and Steph, would you just give one last just principle or a word of encouragement to those that are listening who are parents out there or who want to be parents and are just feeling overwhelmed in the world right now?
I would just encourage anyone that is thinking about leading or co-leading a group or desiring to be a group member, lean into that, pray about that. Know that you can go to mycourageousgirls.com, hit the tools bar, and under that, there's a whole section on getting started, and it will help give you some of the framework to take that next step. But know that Beth and I are here to also lean into. You can email us at info@mycourageousgirls.com. We would love to answer any questions and dialogue with you and help link arms and pray with you, encourage you, especially now more than ever, being part of a community where we can love our girls in such a renewed way and walk alongside them and walk alongside other women is just such a gift. It is such a gift. So I just want to leave you with that.
I would say relationships can hurt us, but Terra I've learned from her that in relationships we heal, but that requires us to be in relationship, right? And so if you're feeling, I mean, this is something Courageous Girls, if it's speaking to you, even just a tinge, like this is kind of what I've been waiting for, this is what I've been looking for as I look at these children who are growing up. Listen to that. Listen to that. It doesn't mean you have to jump off a cliff right now and go all bored, but listen to it and pray. And as Stephanie was saying, start looking into it. Start thinking about the women that God is putting on your heart. Just listen.
Yeah. And if you're feeling alone and overwhelmed and just not sure what voices to listen to, because there are so many opinions out there, you're not alone. And so those women that are on your heart, they're probably feeling the same thing. And I always tell this story, but I am still shocked that all these women said yes to me so many years ago. And I just said, hey, do you guys want to gather and have honest conversations with our daughters and just grow together? And everyone said, yes, yes. They didn't even know what I was asking them of them. But I would just say, there are women who are so hungry and families. So they might be very different than what you think. So listen to God's promptings. I am so grateful for these coaches, for the team that we have, that God is taking this little movement from Jeff and my heart for our own little daughters and has really spread across the globe. And we are praying that God would just use us to draw women and girls to not only God's heart for them, but that they would stand tall in who he made them to be, and they would not receive abuse and they would stand up and be a voice for the abused and the oppressed, and that there would be a mighty shift in the generation of girls. I am no longer going to be silent. There is just too much harm going on, and it is time. It's time. So we're asking, are you in? And if you are, maybe start by just picking up the Courageous, Being Daughters Rooted in Grace book. Maybe just soak that in a little bit, or check out the website. Thank you, and thank you for joining us in the movement to shrink the gap between who we say we are and how we're actually living. This is just a small piece of that.
This podcast is powered by Living Wholehearted, Courageous Girls, and the Christian Parenting Podcast Network. Thank you for joining us in this critical movement of shrinking our integrity gaps between what we preach and live.